love Goblet of Fire that much. Neither the book or the movie. This is another one a lot of people seem to enjoy, so I'm just really proving how off the path I am with my Harry Potter opinions. And that's all they are, opinions, but what I've observed is that out of the first 4 installments in this franchise, people think more fondly of Prisoner of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire, while the ones I lean more towards are Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Interesting how different perspectives can branch out. Well, anyway, it's time for my usual separate appraisal of the book and then the movie. And for the first time, it actually makes full sense to separate them. I have a few issues with this novel. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Harry Potter book, but to be completely honest, I think Goblet of Fire is my least favorite in the series. More according to default, though, because I still really like this book. It's just when I look at the overall series of the Harry Potter novels, I just like this one less than all the rest. Goblet of Fire is a long book. Like, it's really long. It's more than half the length of the last installment in the franchise, Prisoner of Azkaban. And it took about the same amount of time to write. Therefore, I sort of feel that this book is lesser than the others. There's a strange multitude of plot holes that make the book less thought than the others. I mean, this is the main reason Order of the Phoenix took 3 years. I think JK was finally pacing herself right. The big subplot that the film completely skipped over for the adaptation was Hermione Granger's passion for freeing the elves. I find this whole section of the novel to be rather interesting, seeing that you can look at her social justice attitude in a few different perspectives. The main one is, yeah, of course she's in the right. You look at what some of the more despicable owners of house elves do to their servants, and yeah, it's understandable that this is something that should be done away with. The wizarding world is rife with issues such as these, that have been allowed to flourish without proper mindsets coming in to set everything right. However, the alternative take to this is that maybe Hermione doesn't really know what she's talking about, as she's a teenage Muggle-born who's mostly unaccustomed to wizarding practices. The main question is what the house elves really feel. Are they raised naturally inclined to help wizards, or are there some sort of spell placed on the whole race to make them subservient? Was Dobby able to break free from some sort of curse, or did he just want freedom so bad because his masters are far more abusive than others? Personally, I think Hermione is both right and wrong, and the true answer lies somewhere in the middle. I mean, Dumbledore is supposed to be a big champion of rights, and he knowingly has plenty of house elves working at Hogwarts, so Hermione isn't to be taken all the way seriously, but she does raise many valid points. Even though this is my least favorite installment, I still love it to death. I know that the massive length has allowed for some significant issues, but again, thanks to it, everything is so much more fleshed out at the same time. There's room for so much more exploration of this world that I love so intensely. We see so much more of how wizarding is across this universe, with the segment of the Quidditch World Cup and the overarching plot of the Triwizard Tournament. I love what J.K. Rowling is able to accomplish. The characters also feel more real and put together in this novel. The relationship between Harry and Sirius is further explored, and just character moments like Mrs. Weasley hugging Harry at the end after all he's been through, described in the text as the first time he's ever been able to feel a mother's embrace. That's damn good writing right there. I'm going to give Goblet of Fire as a book an 8 out of 10. And if that's the lowest that this series gets, then I don't think that's much of a problem. Now the movie. And I think it's a sizable step down in the quality from the first 3 film adaptations. It's still a good movie, it's just that when I compare it to its predecessors, I can't really say too much in its favor. The director this time was Mike Newell, but best known for the film 4 Weddings and a Funeral. His direction is okay, I guess. I wouldn't really say I hate it or anything. The technical details across the board are competent enough. Most of my major issues with this movie is related to story and pacing, so that's what I'm going to talk about more because I'd rather, talk about the interesting stuff than just focus on a bunch of boring technicals. So, this comes down to one main topic. Goblet of Fire suffers because it's a bad adaptation. And you may say, I thought you were planning to compare the two as individual works, and yes I am. I define adaptation as how you translate something from the page to the screen, not how accurate it is. It doesn't really have too much to do with faithfulness. The reason that this is relevant is because it's the root of the entire main issue of the movie. The movie tries to adapt too much of the book and cuts corners in the most bizarre ways, so that sucks out much flavor from the story. The pacing for this film is abysmal. It's so bad that some scenes are just cut short without any purpose, and it feels lazy. The most important example of this right at the beginning is when the film shows all the hype for the Quidditch World Cup and then just cuts right into the next scene. That's the entire movie. Nothing actually important is given any room to breathe because the film's trying to do way too much, and that's all comes from it being a bad adaptation. The thing about taking a massive novel and streamlining it into an under 3-hour movie is that you can't just haphazardly cut huge sections of the novel without further adjustment. And Goblet of Fire's big issue with that is how it just wastes time. You have to focus on the story and not drag out the dragon sequence for 10 extra minutes where Harry is stuck hanging on top of the castle. This is the kind of adaptation change that would make sense if this was split into a two-parter, so there could be, say, more action to the good finale for the first part. But the thing is, it's not. Just cut this section and instead spend time developing something that was bizarrely rushed through without thoughts. And it adapts certain scenes with ridiculous focus on faithfulness, when they're possibly the least important part in the novel. You get where I'm going? The entire Yule Ball sequence in this movie takes way too long. It not only closely adapts everything in the novel, but it adds shit to ridiculous effect. I guess the director really wanted to focus on the romance, because this entire sequence is kind of worthless. The plot just stops in its tracks to become High School Magical 2. This is what I mean by good adaptation. You look at what's most important in the story you're condensing, and to trim the fat so everything essential stays. But with Goblet of Fire, they trimmed down the essential and left in the pointless stuff. They even threw in... No! Why on earth is valuable things like exploration of slavery in a society too highly opinionated of itself? Prejudice of half-breeded individuals who can help you who they are. Journalistic depravity that negatively affects people and the focus of evolution of a hero is all cut. But this garbage stays in for no reason. What does dancing like a hippogriff even mean, you half-witted dipshits?
Can you dance like a hippogriff? Flying off from a cliff.
Silencio! The Yule Ball dance stuff, that's fine to flesh out a super long book you can meander in. Sure, romance brings in the fangirls, whoop-de-doo. But the Yule Ball sequence could have easily been trimmed down to 10 minutes or so. Or so, cut out entirely. Yeah, there's something I want to talk about that's related to this. So, in this story, Krum is 18 to 19, right? And Hermione is 14 to 15, and he's a professional Quidditch player who, for some reason, is at the same time he's at school, which makes no sense. And then very weirdly, he's going after a schoolgirl way younger than him. Mate? That's not the best idea. Like, seriously, why has no one talked about how Victor Krum is kind of a freaking creep? Yo, Ministry, can we get an investigation into this? And the novel Deathly Hallows, who was seriously checking out Ginny, who was even 2 years younger than Hermione, so... Like, seriously, if the movie had wholesale cut out this entire subplot from the movie, I would have been A-okay with it. And no, Cursed Child, you pile of garbage. The whole notion that Ron and Hermione only got together because Ron was jealous of Victor Krum is stupid beyond belief. Well, this movie is a little shaky in general in this area.
Cedric. Well, go on. Open it.
But no matter. Things have changed. I can touch you now.
I know this is an unrelated tangent, I just thought I'd throw it out there. I generally have enjoyed Michael Gambon's performance as Dumbledore as much as everyone else, but as everyone has already memed to death for the past 10 years, the scene where he asks Harry, according to the book, calmly,
I protest!
Harry, did you put your name in a Goblet of Fire?
No, sir.
You asked one of the older students to do it for you?
No, sir.
You're absolutely sure?
Yes, sir.
is pretty ridiculous, a low in his performance of the character. But elsewise, all the casting for new characters is pretty great. Brendan Gleeson makes a fantastic Mad-Eye Moody. Robert Pattinson is here before his career tanked and then rose from the ashes again. And Ralph Fiennes is excellent as Lord Voldemort. He puts the right amount of evil and malice into and creepiness into his role. I generally have no issues in this regard. As I said, it's still a solid movie. It has pretty great emotional scenes that really work. The score by Patrick Doyle is actually pretty good, especially seeing that he was following up on John Williams. It's just let down by a rather dreadful pace and poor story choices that don't focus on the proper elements. I still enjoy watching it, but I'm very nonplussed why it would be considered one of the best in this franchise. I'm going to give it a 7.2 out of 10. You may be asking, well, if you're going to rattle on about how poorly this film adapted a huge novel into a film, what's the right way to do it? Well, we can discuss that in detail next time. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you feel it worth recommending. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you feel sufficiently inclined.